Okay. I guess we'll just flip. Who wants to call it?
We call tails.
It's tails. Potomac SK. Do you want after neg
Uh, can we have
or side?
AF, please?
Wait, on the that's weird. On the tab it doesn't say what speaking order. Okay. Potomac SK on the af, and then Potomac CS is on the neg.
We'll take second place. Second speaker.
Okay. Um. All right. So Potomac SK speaking first on the af, and Potomac CS speaking second on the neg. Okay. I think we can begin.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, all right, my bad. All right. Is everyone ready? Time starts on my first word. Have you ever lost $1 in a small bet and instantly wished you could take it back? Now imagine you lost billions instead. The UK should rejoin the EU and fix their mistake. Let's start with the economy. In 2023, there are fewer than 2 million workers. Almost 90% of arrivals have been from outside the EU, while net immigration from the 27 country bloc has fallen. The Guardian stated that employers have struggled with staff shortages amid the loss of previous readily available EU workers, particularly in construction, hospitality. 3,400 euros were lost. The UK's export productivity is weak. An analysis by the OBR suggests that Brexit will reduce the UK's long run productivity by 4% compared to the remaining in the EU. Slower productivity limits wage growth and constrains the economy's capacity to expand, especially with the growing population in the UK. Higher costs from new trade barriers add to the restraint in productivity. The Center for European Reform estimated that in 2024, Brexit had cost the UK state 40 billion euros in loss attributed to a need for tax increases. The economy is slipping, and the UK needs to rejoin the EU to fix it. The UK rejoining the EU also opens up opportunities to trade, are expected to fall by about 15% in the long run. In 2024, trade with the EU alone dropped by 19%. Although the UK EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement removes tariffs on most goods, new non tariff barriers have added extra paperwork, customer costs for businesses. Smaller businesses have been particularly affected by the increased red tape and bureaucracy, with many smaller producers having to cease exporting to the EU entirely. The UK has made new trade deals with countries such as Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, but these agreements are expected to only have a minor positive impact on GDP and will not make up for the losses caused by reduced trades with the EU. The Office for Budget Responsibility reports that both import and export intensity have been reduced by Brexit, consistent with an eventual 15% fall in each. This means the UK now trades less with the EU because of new barriers created by Brexit. However, these obstacles could be reduced through negotiations, with compromises made. According to Guardian, the EU is the UK's largest trading partner. In 2024, UK exports to the EU totaled 358 billion euros, while the imports from the EU reached 454 billion euros. This decline in trade underscores the importance of rebuilding closer ties with the EU to strengthen the UK's economy. Now let's talk power. BBC News explained that when the UK was part of the EU, it had a seat at the table and helped shape the rules that affected trade, the economy, and daily life. After Brexit, however, the UK still follows many EU regulations in order to trade with European countries, but now it no longer has a voice in creating those rules. The European Council on Foreign Relations noted in 2023 that the UK no longer helps decide major European policies on issues like climate change, technology, and security, even though those decisions still affect the UK directly. Brexit didn't give us more control, it gave us less. Rejoining the EU isn't about going backward, it's about moving forward. It's about giving our economy strength again, having better trade, and giving Britain back its voice in the world. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Potomac CS first speaker, and I'm speaking for NEG, and time starts on my first wait. Is everyone ready? Okay, time starts on my first word. In 2016, the UK chose to leave the EU to take back control of its laws, trade, and economy. Rejoining would mean giving up that independence and risking economic and political instability. That's why we negate the resolution resolved. The UK should rejoin the EU. Our first contention is that Brexit brings back more trade opportunities for the UK. The UK is the fourth strongest country in the world, meaning it is a powerhouse for Europe and the world. This leads to the idea of how the UK gets many trade offers that can boost their economy, resources, and the overall power of their country. Although when the UK is part of the EU, it restricts them from some of these trade offers, which individually hurts the UK. The vote for Brexit in 2016 marked the start of the rise of the UK. Before Brexit, the UK was not a part of many trade deals, and their country lost power day after day. But ever since the Brexit vote, there have been many trade opportunities. Tom Edgington from the BBC talks about what exactly the UK has done since Brexit. Since Brexit, the UK has signed trade deals and agreements with about 70 countries and one with the EU. However, majority of these copied terms of deals the UK previously had when it was an EU member. The UK also has agreed to join an existing trade agreement between 11 Pacific Rim nations. The government expects to become a member of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Transfership, also known as Partnership, also known as the CPTPP. The CPTPP is a free trade agreement between 11 countries: Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's office said that the CPTPP countries will have a combined GDP of £11 trillion once Britain joins, or 15% of global GDP. Exports to the CPTPP countries were worth £60.5 billion in 12 months to the end of September 2022. Membership of the grouping will add another £1 billion each year and possibly more. This shows how the UK has really been involved in trading and boosts their country after they broke free from the EU. The direct impacts are economic growth, job creation, and greater access to resources. These are all concrete benefits that improve the standard of living for millions of UK citizens. Beyond the economy, independent trade deals also increase Britain's global influence and sovereignty, making it more competitive and resilient in the long run. Since economic prosperity and national independence are critical to a country's stability and power, these impacts clearly outweigh the EU's restrictive system, proving that Brexit is the ideal situation for the UK. Thank you. All right, time for first crossfire, I believe.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so so you mentioned 11 trillion pounds in combined GDP, but how much of that actually involves the UK? So like isn't the UK's trade with CTBT members only around 8%, which is compared to like the 50% of with EU before Brexit?
Um, can you repeat that? It slowed down a bit for me, my Wi-Fi.
So you mentioned 11 trillion pounds in combined GDP, but how much of that like actually involves the UK? The UK's trade with CPTPP members only around 8%, compared with the nearly 50% before Brexit with the EU.
I'm unsure how much of it is from the UK. My computer also slowed down while you were talking about trade. So could you just summarize that for me real quick? Like the during your
All right, so
case.
sorry, which part? Like
You're talking about
trading
trade.
part?
Yeah, in your
All
case.
right, so trade volume has, all right, so basically so imports and exports are expected to fall by about 15% in the long run. Um, so in trade, the EU alone dropped in by 19%. Like the trade and cooperation agreement removes tariffs on most goods, and new non-tariff barriers have added extra paperwork, customs checks, and higher costs for businesses. Smaller businesses have been affected, and the UK has made new trade deals with countries such as Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. But like these agreements are only expected to have GDP and will not make up for the losses caused by reduced trades with the EU. Um, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can I see your card that says that the joint that the deals with Australia and the other countries aren't don't have a big impact?
Would you just want the source?
Um, do you have the
Here.
paragraph you got it from?
Yes, I do. Let me pull it up.
That is cross, by the way, so.
Can she still send it to me during the rebuttal?
I can.
Potomac SK, do you want to use any prep?
Can I have 1 minute, please?
Okay. No, it's a minute of prep.
Okay. Our opposition has stated that Brexit brings back trade opportunities. But how do we know this for sure? And how impactful are they? They didn't state that. So that leaves me with that question. Also, will it make up for all the loss that the the loss of the EU that the UK invested? The Brexit had cost the UK 40 billion euros in lost tax revenue, and it also before it was and UK exports total to 30 356 billion euros, while imports from the EU have reached 40 454 billion euros, and this decline kind of like this is what it was before, and now it's barely anything, and that isn't good, especially because yeah. And how do we know that the CCTP is good for the UK? We haven't seen the UK hasn't been in the CCTP for long, and it hasn't contributed much either. Who knows? Maybe it'll also leave the CCTP just like how it did leave the UK. This is why we support the resolution. Thank you.
I use 30 seconds of prep time. I think I'm ready right now. 1 second while I pull up a timer. This
Yeah,
is
that was just 30. Oh, just saying that was 30 seconds of prep.
oh, okay. And also this is 3 minutes of rebuttal, right? Okay.
Oh
Time
wait, no, it's 4 minutes.
oh, it's 4 minutes? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, time will begin my first word. So first, I want to clarify the idea of CPTPP. Our card says since Brexit, the UK has signed trade deals with about 70 other countries and one with the EU. However, majority of these copied the terms and deals the UK previously had when it was an EU member, meaning that it's not making that much different deals. So what is the point of the UK being in the EU if they're already outside? They're already doing the same type of deals it was doing when it was in the EU. Also, the UK has agreed to join an existing trade agreement with between 11 Pacific nations. The government expects a member of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Pacific Partnership (CPTPP). CPTPP is a free trade agreement between 11 countries: Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's office said that the CPTPP countries will have a combined GDP of 11 trillion pounds once Britain joins, or 15% of global GDP. Exports to CPTPP countries were worth 60.5 billion pounds in the 12 months. Membership of the grouping will add another 1.8 billion pounds each year and possibly more. This shows just the floor of how much the UK can actually contribute to the CPTPP. And if anyways, the CPTPP is generating UK and helping them increase their economy, what is the point of the UK being in Brexit? Because all Brexit seems like it's doing, it's controlling the UK's sovereignty. The UK isn't controlling their own sovereignty when it's in Brexit. They're not making their decisions because Brexit thinks we have to make decisions for the greater good, but the UK doesn't have their own sovereignty. Instead, when they're outside from Brexit, the UK is able to control their own sovereignty. Also, Brexit happened during the time of the COVID pandemic. So, over the last 5 years, the UK has been hit with Brexit and COVID. And any country that gets hit with an impact like this, they can't economically bounce back in 5 years. It'll take them much longer. And the UK has already showed signs that it won't take them much longer. It'll take them only a little bit longer. The CPTPP is a big example of this. So you can't use the last 5 years of what happened to predict the next 100 years in the future. And also, the UK is one of the countries that is in NATO, yet it is not in the EU. And guess what NATO does? NATO saves lives in Ukraine because of the Russia-Ukraine uh, conflict. NATO uses nuclear weapons to back Russia off, where now Russia is scared to attack Ukraine, which is saving so many and many lives. And the UK is doing all of this without being in the EU. So there's no point of them anyways being in the EU. Also, if the UK joins the EU, open borders will cause floods of immigration, and that could lead to dense population. This dense population, we've seen many countries that have dense populations. It could lead to poverty, less jobs, and it could lead to death. And both of these NATO and open borders argument have impact on death. And in debate and in everywhere, death is the most important topic because the most important thing is to save the most amount of lives. And we show about how our side does that. The opponents never talk about this. They talk about the economy and they talk about how it's been slipping. But they're only using the last 5 years and they're thinking they can use the last 5 years to show the next 100 years. They can't do that, and we have proven why they can't do that. And we've also given reasons about how death is the most important impact and we value death. The opponent does not value death. And this is why you should vote for the neg. Thank you.
Do we start Crossfire?
Yeah, it's crossfire now.
I have a question for you. You kept on saying that Brexit is controlling the UK and controlling their sovereignty. How
I
is that
meant
true?
I meant the EU. When the UK was in the EU, it was controlling their own sovereignty.
Okay.
I just accidentally said Brexit because there's so many words. But can you explain to me how can you just quickly explain to me how smaller businesses are struggling just so that I know?
Okay. Smaller businesses before Brexit were mostly trading with the UK and most of their goods were going to the I'm sorry, they were mostly trading with the EU and most of their goods went to the EU. Now that Brexit happened, smaller businesses don't have much time to recover because they're small. They relied on the EU, and now that's gone. It'll take them a while to get back, and
Okay,
we
wait.
don't know how long that is. In mean, until then, some of these businesses are closing down.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
Don't you think the CPTPP does the same thing, if not even more? I mean, the CPTPP is a size of 11 people, while 11 countries, which, yeah, it's not as big, but it's growing and it's anyways generating tons of money that are also from imports and exports. Don't you agree that the CPTPP is doing almost the same thing as the EU?
They are, but smaller
Yeah,
businesses
so you just
they
agree
don't
that
just
the CP
easily adapt to the new conditions. They take more time than bigger businesses who are trading with a lot more people. They know
Yeah,
a lot
if
more
every
people.
so you're saying that smaller businesses will take more time to adjust. That is fine because we've seen in the last 5 years that you have to adjust and you can't predict everything in the last 5 years. That's what you guys are doing. But you just agree with us that the CPTPP is yet doing and filling the whole of the EU. So what is the point of being in the EU if it limits the UK's sovereignty, it limits their decisions, and it could potentially create even more tension in Europe? What is the point of being in the EU?
I'll get back to you on that. But first, can I have a card for how you know that the CTPPP is one of the largest growing
I'll
nation
send
things?
I'll send the CPTPP card right now.
Okay, first. And second, how, like my partner said before, how much is from the 11 trillion pounds that the CTTPP is creating is the is the UK part of and like
That's time.
I sent the card in the chat just so that you
okay.
Okay. Okay, SK, are you gonna use your arguments prep?
I'm good. I can start.
Okay.
Okay. So time starts. Is everyone ready? Time starts on my first word. So, before I start, my card is in the chat. All right. So their main contention is that Brexit opened more trade opportunities. Their CPTPP and restored independence. But the reality is, the Office for Budget Responsibility found that Brexit reduced UK productivity by 4%, while the CPTPP adds less than 0.1 to GDP, which isn't growth, that's stagnation. And they do, while they talk about new deals, the EU still helps and makes up for nearly half of UK trade, while CPTPP account for just 8%. So when they claim that the UK is gaining independence, the truth is it's losing economic power and influence. They also said that the single market limited trade, but what actually happened is the opposite. Brexit created red tape, border checks, and new trade barriers that especially hurt like small UK businesses. So even with zero tariff deals, exports have fallen because businesses can't afford the paperwork or shipping costs. And so while they focus on pride and saving face, we focus on saving the economy. The impact of pride doesn't pay wages, rebuild exports, or recover like billions in lost tax revenue. So like our side clearly wins on the real world effects, trade, economy, and power, because we're talking about measurable outcomes, not emotional ones. So like that's why on every level, economic strength, opportunity, and global influence, the UK and its people are better off rejoining the EU. Thank you.
I'll use prep time. Can you let me know when I have 1 minute 15 seconds left?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm ready to start. All right, I'm the first speaker for Potomac CS. I'm starting my summary, and I am negating. All right. So to what they said about trade, the trade will grow over time, which we've already said in our case, and also our opponents never respond about NATO, which means we win on that argument. The CPTPP does the same thing as the EU does, which we've also said again. They when they drop NATO, they show that they don't care about the Ukrainian lives that we are losing. So we also win on. So really, in our impacts, we win on magnitude because we're talking about debts here. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question for you both.
Okay.
You guys said that there are deaths happen that because if we rejoin the EU, but What with staff shortages and people not able to understand, businesses are going to go out of business, and wouldn't that also like create death because they're going to go out for starvation and more?
I don't understand your question.
Yeah,
Okay,
could you repeat that?
you guys said that there'll be will happen if we rejoin the EU. Well, how do you know that there's not going to be death happening because we don't rejoin the EU? Because there are not enough workers for businesses, so businesses go out of business.
I can answer this question. We've said it many times before. We'll say it again. If the UK rejoins the EU, they need like exception because otherwise the UK rejoining would just be a waste and their economy would struggle massively. And we, many European countries, and we have the information if you want, have said that if the UK tries to rejoin with these exceptions, then they'll get mad, then they'll create tensions, and tensions many times in history and in the future and how we know lead to death.
Yeah, exactly. Um, the they won't get opt-outs, which is really important for them because their economy will go down if they don't get opt-outs.
I
Okay.
don't have any questions. Anya, do you have any questions? Well, you muted. No.
Wait, did you hear that? I
Oh.
think I was on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute. Just accept it.
Okay. So, what are your impacts exactly?
Can you repeat the question?
What are your impacts?
People are going to lose their jobs, and the UK's economy is not stabilized, so it's on the fall. The UK has no voice in any thing that's happening in the European area, and there's barely any import
Can I
or
respond?
export happening from the EU.
Okay.
Can I respond to that quickly?
But
Oh, yeah, actually, on
do
you.
you care about Ukrainian
Um,
lives? The Ukrainian lives that are going to be lost if they rejoin?
who said Ukrainian lives will be gone if the UK rejoins the EU?
Well, the point what we're trying to say is that UK is already saving Ukrainian lives without being in the EU. So what is the point of them joining the EU?
That's cross. Alright, time for final focus. Um, Potomac SK, you still have 2 minutes of prep left. Would you like to use it?
Can I use all of it, please?
Yep. Okay, that's pro.
Okay. We will. You should vote for the ask because first of all, there's slower productivity happening, even with the CPTPP there for the UK, and it isn't showing much right now. So who's to say that it'll grow? Also, there are tax increases happening because of 40 billion euros lost in tax revenue. That isn't good for the economy or and the small businesses that are affected and that are going through red tape and bureaucracy is not good. Also, you guys never touched on the fact that the UK never our opponents never touched on the fact that the UK needs to listen to the EU when it for whole European decisions, but they have no voice or say in that. Also, they said that there are floods of immigrationing that's going to happen if the UK rejoins the EU. But also, there's illegal immigration happening right now, which is before Brexit. According to the BBC, the immigration is soaring, crossing peaks about 46,000 people after Brexit. Before, there was barely anything. We don't want illegal immigration, and that's one reason why to back out of the EU backfired on themselves. This is why you should vote for that. Thank you.
I don't think I need any prep time. Although before I say the final speech, I just want to thank all the judges because it's been a long day and the judges have stuck with us, been judging, so and giving us feedback so we can be better debaters. So thank you to the judges and thank you to like everyone else who debated because they've helped.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh wait, let me get a timer up.
Yeah, thank you for spending your Saturday here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for spending your Saturday here.
All right, now time will begin on my first word. Let me get, okay, yeah. So first, I just want to clarify our contentions. We think Brexit will bring more trade opportunities for the UK, and we think that rejoining will cause violence for the UK and all of Europe. Now, the opponents seem to value economy too much, which anyways, we responded to them saying that the CPTPP is a big economic group that's really striving with the UK joining. In fact, they're gaining about $1.8 billion every year for that from the UK joining, but they're only valuing economy. They're not picking. They haven't picked up any of our any of our arguments that talk about death. The opponents never respond to how the UK is already in NATO, yet they're not in the EU, and they're still protecting Ukrainian lives. And this makes it seem like they don't value Ukrainian lives. They're not valuing that. They're valuing economy over Ukrainian lives, which death is the most important topic in debate. And so valuing Ukrainian lives is more important and is better than valuing economy. While economy is still very important, lives are the most thing. In my opinion, lives are is the most thing in debates, in all debates, and in today's debate. And the opponents don't understand the flood of immigration. While yes, there could be illegal immigration right now, open borders cause even more immigration, which could lead to even more unemployment rates, and people that already have jobs would be working for way less money, which means that there's much more poverty, which again could lead to death. Also, if the UK rejoins, they will need exceptions from exceptions from the EU, like basically opt-outs, because a powerful country like the UK would need that to strive, otherwise their economy would plummet. But if they rejoin and get these exceptions, other nations get mad. We've given you evidence about this, and you don't seem to care. You don't seem to think that. And these tensions in these other countries could easily lead to death, which again is the most important topic. Not economy, it's death. So this is why my partner and I negate the resolution. Thank you.
Good debate, y'all.
Thank you, judges, and thank you,
Yeah,
SK, because this was good debate.
Yeah,
yeah,
thank
this is
you.
really good. You spoke really well.
Even the observers, thank you for being here, because like it really means a lot.
Just give the judges a couple minutes to make their decisions. Okay, it looks like all the judges have submitted their ballots. So first, I'd like to congratulate all our debaters on making it to the finals and completing the November intramural. And it was a tough decision, I believe, for all the judges, but in the end, the neg side has won the round. So I think I'll share my feedback and then I'll let the other judges. Um, so the reason that I chose to vote for neg was because I thought that they did a great job stating that the CPTPP substitute for the EU, and they indicated like the progression thus far post Brexit, and the impact of COVID on the economy, which makes it harder to understand the impact that Brexit had on the economy. But they also did a great job of conveying that their impact, and weighing it to represent the importance. But I think that there would have been a different outcome if Potomac SK would have continued to represent the ineffectiveness of the CPTPP, because I remember they mentioned that it only contributed 8% to the UK economy, while the EU contributed more. So I think that they would have brought that up then there would have been a different outcome, or it would have been an even closer debate. But I think both sides did a great job overall.
I can go next. I did end up voting negative, but I do think it was a very close debate, and y'all are awesome and have great futures in debate. But I voted for Potomac CS. I think that they were winning, that the CTPP trade argument that proves that the UK's trade agreements with other countries are net better for the economy, and that rejoining the EU would then force the UK out of these agreements because of strict EU regulations, like regulations, rules, laws, whatever, etc. While I think this NATO argument ends up becoming a way bigger deal in this debate, I definitely don't end up voting on it. I don't think that this is particular offense that you should be going for and is going to help you win. I think the simplest answer to this that um the affirmative team could have said is just no, we could still be in NATO and be in the EU at the same time. Like countries like France and Germany are both in those agreements. So I don't necessarily understand why this NATO argument becomes a reason why we shouldn't rejoin the EU, because you can do both at the same time and save Ukrainian lives while also rejoining the EU. I think this could have been an AF ballot if Potomac SK extended their warrants about that they had in the first speech about how trade dropping since Brexit to combat some of the CTPP trade stuff, because I think you're asking smart questions. I think in the second constructive speech about, is the CTPP, is that actually productive? Is it actually boosting the economy? And this would have been great evidence to use against that, to be like, even if we've rejoined the CTPP, whatever, the statistics still show that trade has dropped. So the EU is still not better, even if that means like getting out of these trade agreements. But overall, great job.
I also balloted neg for Potomac CS for slightly different reasoning. So I would say this round was particularly hard to vote on simply because of the fact that there was a lack of terminal impacts. Like even on the like the app or the neg, I forget which one, but they were talking about like the impacts of something about job creation, like national stability. Like it was not warranted like out at all. So like there was really nothing to vote on the other side in terms of terminology. And then the fact that like also almost nothing was responded to in a timely manner. Like you would have a good response, but it would be in the speech way too late, and like defense isn't sticky, so like I could not consider it. And then like so many things were dropped. Moreover, nothing was like actually like properly extended. And I feel like there wasn't that much engagement between the two sides' actual contentions because you kept on getting hung up. Like, although these are relevant, such as the CPTPP, migration, and NATO, like, they should not have been prioritized in this debate. Like, the CPTPP and NATO were both a wash, in my opinion, because there was no reason to join the EU, but no reason to not join the EU. So neither side was really convincing or compelling this narrative. So I eventually decided to cast my ballot for Potomac CS since A, they told me to prioritize like underneath whatever like depth or magnitude. So I guess since they had some semblance of impact, I had to go with theirs. And then also because like in general, since there was really no offense on either side, I just defaulted neg.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any. Thank you, judges.
Yeah, of course.
Arnav, you have a
Me
question?
neither. Thank you, judges.
Like what are we what are like the winners for like speech and like finals? What they get?
A plaque, I think.
What would you say? Oh yeah, did you like a little glass trophy thing, I think.
Oh,
But yeah.
well, everything else. Thank you so much, judges.
I have no questions. Thank you so much.
Right,
Thank you,
congratulations,
judge.
teams. We're so proud of you. Everyone is free to click leave meeting now. You don't need to do anything else for tonight. Have a wonderful night. Again, congratulations to both teams, and we'll see you at the next intramural.
Thank you.
Thank you.